Hello, and welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Britteney Laurenceau, and I'm a former communications aide for the UN International Computing Center, UNICC. UNICC is an organization delivering dynamic and innovative ICT solutions for the UN system. I have a master's in international affairs and global justice from Brooklyn College. I have spent some years in Indonesia supporting initiatives around English education, gender equity, and forest conservation. But today, I am delighted to be having a discussion about tech and tech careers with Aminka Belvitt, founder and CEO of Wofemtech Solutions Incorporated and the For Us Girls Foundation. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. In 2020, Girls in ICT Day was on the 23rd of April. The objective of Girls in ICT Day is to help create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and is in support of the Equals Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. UNICC is pleased to be a partner on this session today. The goals of this series include to interest and inspire girls and younger women with information about a range of ICT careers that can be had, bring before a broader audience some of the role model women in tech, and share information about their career journeys and work, offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and other UN goals, showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers, and lastly, to provide girls with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote a Girls in Tech organization with which they are involved and promote it to a broader international audience. As you can see, a more gender-balanced tech sector is something that I'm passionate about and working towards. So I'm delighted to now shift to a conversation with Aminka Belvitt, founder and CEO of Wofemtech Solutions Incorporated. In 2016, she was selected as a champion of change for women's economic empowerment by UN Women for the Empower Women platform. Aminka is a professional brand strategist, social innovator, advocate, and motivational speaker. And we are thrilled to have her with us today. So first, Aminka, how are you doing?
Yay, thank you for having me. That was an incredible introduction, Britteney. I hope it wasn't too much to get through. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I'm honored to have this conversation.
So you're doing well, so that's great. When and how did you get into technology?
I'm really excited to have this conversation, mainly because, and I'm sure we'll get through to that. So lots of times when women who work in tech or who have technical skills are asked to speak, lots of times they don't actually get to talk about the actual their journey in tech and how did they get there and what they do. So for me, I really had a non-traditional journey through tech in the sense that it wasn't something that I set out to do in terms of my studies. It wasn't something I set out to do when I was kind of my career. And maybe that could be to a lot of the barriers that we discussed in how these technology companies are structured by men and also too just in marketing, how we market gaming and computers to a specific gender over the other, right? So I always was into building things. I remember being really good at math, but then I had more passions in the humanitarian sector and philosophy, such as political science, geography, economics, and business development. So my journey into tech really started in 2015, about 5 years ago. And I saw an opportunity to work at a startup. It was actually in a marketing role. And I was in this process of transition from working in politics and in terms of international development, working from like a research perspective and a think tank perspective. And I wanted to go into PR, public relations, and marketing. So I saw this opportunity. And I always remembered advice from a friend that gave me, who now works for Microsoft, funny enough. He said to me, if you ever have an opportunity to work for a startup, take it. because you will take on so many roles that you would not have access to if you work for a traditional company. And therefore, it could really tell you what you want to do and expose you to different roles and functions. So I did that. I took that job. It was for an ed tech company. So we were doing, it was SaaS. It was software as a solution product. It was an language-based learning platform. So they had two apps. One was a web app platform that you would go to the website and you would enter their portal. And then the other app or the interface would be the iOS app. So I was brought on as the marketing person. But again, what I was saying in terms of the startup nature, they were growing very quickly and doing a lot of transition. So I had an opportunity to work with the development team. And I think just my natural assertiveness and curiosity to learn and have an imagination, I asked the development team to actually teach me how to code. So I wasn't necessarily doing all of the coding for the company, but I was learning at the same time while I was doing project management and technical product quality assurance, doing sprints, working alongside the developers. So really that introduction is what brought me into the whole tech industry and the tech world. And then my individual curiosity wanting to know more really allowed me to stay there and kind of find a space for myself.
Awesome. Like, I like the whole idea of like, you see an opportunity, you know your skill set, and you go for it. That's just a wonderful story there. And like, what do you enjoy most about your job?
What I enjoy most about whether it's working for my own tech company, Wofemtech Solutions, or with my foundation, the tech summit that we run, or even sometimes when I get freelance contracts, is I love really figuring out when there's a technical issue and then fixing it. Like, I just feel so empowered. I feel so smart. I really feel like, when the Hulk, he gets all green and he gets like bigger. I just, it's so incredible. And ever since that I saw and wrote my first line of code and the feeling that I got, I was like, oh my goodness, I want every girl in the world to feel this experience, even if it's not as a full career, just as something that they say that they've done in their life. It's a really incredible feeling to see something that wasn't working and then you just did a little tweaking and then boom, it's now working. I think that's what I love about the world I get to do is solving problems. And I think if I summarize the things that I do in life, and I feel like I'm a solution provider. And so whether it's in the technical aspect or dealing with, systemic structures, I really want to focus on solutions. So I love being able to find a solution to technical problems, whether it's a platform that I'm working on or a solution I'm helping a client with.
That's great. Also have to ask, because I saw that you help people with their strategy for their brand. So what excites you about marketing strategy? Just if you could share that with the audience.
So what excites me about marketing strategies is understanding what are you trying to achieve? What's the goal, right? What's the impact? And I think sometimes when we think about marketing, we're just like, well, the end goal is to sell a t-shirt, sell a product. No, it's really about what does that person feel like when they sell a product? Right? I remember working for a marketing agency and I had one of the most difficult counts of the whole agency and I hated it. But at the end, I was able to transform that count in terms of dollar cents and, digital media presence because I was able to look at it from a different lens. So the count was dealing with house and home market. So it was selling appliances for kitchenware, homeware, things mainly for the kitchen. And the brand was based in the Middle East. And so I had to find a really creative way to market the product, but more so do it away through the engagement. What type of feeling do you get when you use these products? And I feel like whatever you're marketing, if it's a program to empower girls, if it's a technical product, or if it's a hair product, what feeling do you get after using this product? That's what determines the purchasing power. And that's what determines bringing a customer back is how do they feel using your product or your service? What impact have you made in their lives? So that's really what I think it all comes down to is those two things.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Also, like, I understand that you have a tech summit for girls. Can you tell us how that came about and what inspired you to do that and, what effect and impact it's had so far?
Yeah, of course. So this is a great story because everyone always thinks that, you know, you have an idea and then you implement it. I mean, certainly that's really the method and the roadmap to certain things.
Sure.
But, you know, there are swivels in between. So with this story, with the new reality, it really was, I believe, and again, what I was saying before, that I'm a solutions provider and I want to position myself to provide solutions regardless of who that entity is. And so I was traveling to New York a lot for work, and mainly with a lot of my work that I was doing with UN Women on the Break the Glass campaign and other organizations and just personal interests. And I had the opportunity to speak on a panel at SAP at the 10 Hudson Yard with one of their senior vice president. And we were talking about women in tech, and this was year 2017 and what the year is going to look like. This is when Me Too was happening. And what I was saying was that what I see is going to happen is a complete cultural shift. And what I mean in the cultural shift is that the tech companies, how we function, is going to completely change moving forward. And it's going to change in the sense of we're so focused of, you know, the corporate structure, individuals with their suits going from t-shirts, but I said it's going to change in the way that we look for ideas and innovation. We're going to start looking from ideas and innovation in ways that we never looked at it before, and from people we never thought of before. And so this is what I kind of, I guess, was foreseeing. And in that experience, being on these platforms with these tech companies and running the programs that I do with For Us Girls, I was like, what is the link in between? And what I realized was that the culture shift, we were focusing on having a lot of more women in the workplace, but we weren't focusing on getting them there. The cultural shift of understanding why young girls weren't considering or remaining in math, science, and tech related programs. And that if we wanted to make a true cultural shift, we had to give the same type of effort we give to working women age to younger girls in a different way. So I went back and I had participated in a design thinking business summit, and I was like, man, this is amazing. This is revolutionary. How can I apply this? I'm waiting for the right moment. And then literally at the top of 2018, I was like, oh my goodness, that is it. And that's when the name came to me. I said, we need a new reality now where girls have all of these tools at their fingerprints to be able to create new realities for themselves. They no longer have to wait for someone to give them a job. They can create the job themselves by giving their own skills. They no longer have to wait for this organization to let them know what deliverables programs are going to give. They can create that themselves. So a new reality really came from how can we better innovate and inspire our young leaders to create the solutions they want in the world now. And so the Tech Summit, we had a first edition in August 2018. And what a new reality is, it wasn't just to bring girls to a space and to have all these high-level speakers, was to center them at the learning and at the focus of the summit. And that's what's different about new reality in the sense that they get to hear and see women of color in all aspects of technology, gaming, virtual reality, Bitcoin, and then they also get to participate in fireside chats and workshops on marketing and business and branding. And then at the third finale part of it, they are participating in Design Thinking Creative Lab, where they're actually prototyping with like cardboard and all the things that we can find them. They're like mini prototype design solutions to water filtration systems. And so really that's how a new reality was designed. And why I love that story is that I feel that for anything to be really innovative to fill the gap, it has to come out of a need. It has to come out of an experience that, you know, because the reason why or the benefit of that is the impact. So because of that, we were able to, in the last 2.5 years, we've had three editions, one virtual, 2 in person, and we've been impacting almost 600 girls in the New York City area, right? Just from this idea. It's such a short amount of time, but because impact was a focus. And then in terms of how we're really transforming these girls' lives, one of the educational partners we have is the Tom Rivers School Boards in Tom Rivers, South New Jersey, about an hour and a half. You know Tom Rivers is?
Definitely.
From New York. Mm-hmm. They have now cited their involvement with a new reality and what I've been doing with their school has increased their girls' participation in their coding programs by 50%. And it's such an amazing thing on not just the work that I've been doing, but more so the methodology of when you focus experimental learning, when you focus on removing the barriers and finding a different way to go to the problem, not just like, okay, there's no girls in tech, let's just tell them about tech. No, let's kind of show them what the tech looks like. What does tech mean? How are the different aspects of their lives and touch points that they can understand with tech? Because if you're giving somebody one picture that looks the same, how do you expect them to have a different feeling towards it? That makes no sense. So yeah, those are some of the things that we've been able to do with a New Reality Tech Summit.
That's absolutely dynamic, because it seems as if you gave these girls a way to be an agent in their own journeys in tech, right? It's like you said, it may not have looked like them before, but when they find their niche, they can create spaces where they can, succeed. And that's like an inspiring story, top to bottom. But I mean, besides that wonderful initiative, is there anything else in particular that you're proud of along your journey in tech that you can share with the audience? Something else that you're proud of and, speaks to like your journey in tech?
I would say my tech company, Wofemtech Solutions, I would say that. And I think even before that, I would say when I was working for that tech company, that really brought me into the industry and really allowed me to cultivate a career for myself and to consider myself as an entrepreneur. Because before, I've always had this spirit, but when you work for a startup, even if you're working for someone else, you have to have the entrepreneurial spirit because you're building something. When you go into an established company, it's grandfathered in. There's things that I heard is 10, hundreds of people had your job before you and probably will have, after you. So a startup is you're creating something different for yourself. So one thing I did like that I'm so proud of that we did is that I was able to partner a partnership, a sales agreement with a local school board to help their students with their language skills. So this was in Montreal, where I was based at the time. French is the predominant language here, like Canadian French, but there's still an English population. So some schools are part of the English school board. So this one particular school was in a English-speaking area. It was an English school board, but the kids still had to learn French. And so their numbers were really low and they needed it to graduate high school. So I was able to, with the support of their principal, bring in our software and our tutoring support. And funny enough is that now we're doing e-learning, and this was like 3 years ago, and we were doing this, we were providing tutoring support by Google Hangout. They were using our technology, our software via the web, and they were also using the tutor support like via Google Hangout before everyone knew other solutions. And it's so funny because now that's what they're doing. And so we were able to initiate that into the school because it was not being done. And now when we see e-learning, this is only something now that we're comfortable because of COVID-19. So we were able to do that. And the result of that is that the graduation rate was so high. It was in the 90s. And a lot of those students who graduated had like over 80% of like, it's called a DELF certificate. And so basically what it is, it's issued by language institution in France that provides standard levels of understanding of French. So a DELF intermediate and beginner certification provides the understanding the individual can carry a casual conversation. So I was just really happy that we were able to combine learning, education, and technology to achieve that. And then now on my own with Wofemtech, just being able to provide a very easy to use video conferencing platform for nonprofits to be able for them to be able to deliver their employment services that they do, resettlement services that they do, or businesses and entrepreneurs conducting meetings is very empowering. Again, being able to provide a solution for other people to better or more adequately address the problems that they're addressing.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, going off of that, given your various instances of creating gender equity in tech, what are some challenges that you've encountered? And from those challenges, what lessons could you share with us that you've learned as well?
Of course, man. Where do we go with that? This is the big one. This is something, but this is what I'm dealing with currently right now. This is what I'm sitting with. So I will compartmentalize it in challenges that I faced when I was working for a tech company and working with all of the developers, which were all male. I have not worked, unless it's been my own company or my own foundation, with women developers. And I think that's why I created those brands, so I could have that. When I was working, I guess, purely professionally as an employee, I was only working with male developers. I did not work with any women developers at all. And, you know, it's very common. It's not something, yes, you know, it is systemically designed that way, in the sense that the women are lacking, but it's really challenging in certain areas to find. Also, too, people don't make an effort to find it. You know, that's what we were experiencing. So in that, number one, when I was working as an employee for a tech company, I was a business manager, and I was in the one that was signing off projects, okaying projects, signing off invoices and payments. This was everything started and stopped with me. And I had our developers, and even our contract developers, contract companies, just refused to really follow my lead. I literally had an issue with one of the developers. He was not delivering his work as he was supposed to. The quality was poor, and he was just not really doing what he was supposed to do, but he was directly not responding to me. Now, when he was dealing with the project manager, who was a male, but my subordinate, he would just like buddy chuck up with him all the time and have conversations. And then that function did not work. And so we brought attention to the president of the company. And even though he was an older white man, he was easy to identify that it was a gender and a cultural based issue with the developer. And he had a talk with the contractor, the company who was providing us with the developers. They did not believe me. It really was a real business issue for months. And it's actually really painful thinking about it, because on the business aspect, it held up projects longer than it needed to. And on the emotional aspect, it was just draining. I was very young at the time. So eventually the issue was resolved with the president of the tech company that was providing us the developers, issued an apology to me, both written via email and in person with the president, where he identified saying, I do have a cultural issue with my developers. There is an issue here of them not understanding how to take direction from women. Can you imagine in Canada in 2020? But or at that time, 2017, yeah, this was real. And it had to be a real internal conversation, and where we had to talk to the developer. And mind you, I liked this individual, but when it came to my role, it was always an issue. So now, like what you experience having to go through it, having the challenge, but then having to be the one to have that conversation. I'm lucky that I had an employer who saw my point of view, but the other person didn't see the point of view. So it took a long time for that to be rectified. Then when it was rectified, you know, I saw an opportunity to open a conversation to explain to him how it is from a woman's perspective. And even though this person was good in nature, he wasn't even aware that that's the thing that's so oblivious, is that we have so many agents playing these roles in between, and so many people misrepresenting individuals, and so many people being hurt by that. So I had a conversation with him, and I said, also too, I've noticed, why haven't you not sent me one woman developer? There's 4 universities in the city, 2 English and 2 French. You cannot find one woman that has a degree in computer science, or even just learn online. And he was like, well, you know, they're hard to find, and give me all this stuff. And I said, no, they're not, because I went to university. I know these programs exist. I see them. And I said, you need to hire one. I can't continue giving you a contract if we don't have one, because imagine what I'm experiencing. And so he did bring in a woman developer at my request. Then what ended up happening was that he got rid of her. And then I also followed up and said, what happened? He said, oh, and this gets to the second compartment, being a tech entrepreneur of a tech company. They said, oh, she kept messing up on the code and making issues. And then I said, okay. I said, you know, you're one developer here. You know how many times I have to correct him, and I'm not as technically skilled as him. I said, why is it that your male developers are given this space to fail, to give it the space and many times of trial and error to get it wrong? I said, your male developers, as many master's degrees they have, break our code multiple times. And I have not seen you ever try to fire them or get rid of them or replace them. And I said, you I understand you have a good heart, but
Right.
if you have a good heart, it's no longer just about your technical abilities. It's about now the human experience. You have a role as a human and as a man to make a stand in your company of how you're going to treat women and how you're going to treat developers. And don't you want the best developer? And I said, take a chance on her. I said, take the same amount of time you did your now lead developer and train her and then bring her back to me. And I could be so proud to say, after 3 months, she was up to par with the other developers. And he came back to me and he said, you know what, thank you so much for talking to me and recognizing a blind spot that I had that I wasn't ready to discuss. He's like, I'll admit I had an ego at the beginning, but me putting time with her, she's became one of our strongest developers.
Wow.
And the issue came down to that being a woman in tech, you know, whether role you play, but especially if you are on the technical side or in a position of power, there is a space that you're not allowed to make mistakes. And certainly other areas of life is like that, but it's so more prevalent in tech because now with Wofemtech, I'll be on calls with individuals. You know, you could use any video conferencing platform, whether it's Skype, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Hangout, whether it's FaceTime, and you will enter some technical difficulties. But I found that even with my product, people are willing to give other products a more grace period. And I watch them all the time, you know, just dismiss trying to troubleshoot or dismiss trying to say, let's just, you know, bear with it. But when you use a product that's built by a man and a company led by men, they will just grin through the difficulties and they won't stop and they won't say anything. And so to me, that's what really summarizes the experience is that I am not able to, in terms of how the industry is set, to fail or to have a growing period. And the way that I, you know, control and empower myself is that I'm deciding to grow my company how I want to. I'm going to take as much time of how I want to with my company, and I will deploy things when I want to, because I'm not going to be pushed by an industry, because I know for a fact that Google was not built in one day, nor was it built in 3 weeks, you know, and that's the thing, that constantly you have that struggle of, okay, this is the standard, but then it's like, wait, no, this is really the standard, but then it's like, this is what I'm expecting. And so that's what I honestly right now I am experiencing is growing a startup and nurturing a startup in a world and in a space with customers and clients of both genders who don't give women in this space a grace period and learning.
That was awesome. Just, you know, you're speaking about what happened at the leadership level, and then just like, you know, the space to fail. Those are 2 things I think could resonate with any women in tech at any level of their career. And the lessons you learned also show that, you know, you're going to do what works for you. And that's a great lesson for anyone to take forward and just say, yeah, you know, you have to do what works for you and you'll succeed, you know, because it's your work and you trust your work. So my final question for you is, any advice for girls and younger women in tech with the challenges you stated, with your journey, knowing what you know now and what you're learning currently? What advice could you give young women and girls?
Just be imaginative, like just so have such a wild and vivid and scary imagination of just like what possibilities you can cultivate. I think because your imagination will carry you so far. If you think of all the great thinkers, both women and men, and, you know, recently, I think it was this year, Katherine Johnson passed away. Helped us get to, you know, the moon, the brilliant mathematician mind that she is. You have to have an imagination, you know, that is what this field is about. It really comes down to that. And then number 2, you know, cultivate your skills. Always learn, always find skills, always find free courses, pick someone's brain. Just don't feel that you have to have an education from said school or said college. You know, education now is very universal, and the internet has provided that equalizer in terms of
absolutely.
Prestige. Education is education, especially when it comes to just technical. And then finally, I would say, create and define the type of profession, the technical or innovator that you want to be, and lead with that. Lead with how you want to be. I had to decide, very quickly in this industry what type of leader and innovator that I wanted to be, and everyone has to do that. And the reason why it's important is regardless of who you work for or what your role is, you'll always remember what type of developer you are, what type of designer you are, and I think that's most important.
3 awesome pieces of advice, and I'm sure our viewers are very, very happy about that. Just checking in, did you have any questions for me by chance?
Yeah, I want to know about how was your experience in Indonesia?
Oh, yes. So I was actually in the Peace Corps. That's a program where, on average, they send you for a 2-year assignment in a country with a certain sector, whether that's education, public health. I think there's like community development, economic development, and the list goes on. And my sector was English education, but I couldn't really stick to the script because I like to, make things my own. And I saw gender equity as an issue that needed to be dealt with, as well as environmental conservation as things my community was interested in. So I spent 2 years with that, teaching high school students English and about Americans, how Americans are very varied, and it was a great time. I love the country. I've been back twice. One occasion was with Cigna as a corporate volunteer coach. They were sending executives to Bali to work at 2 NGOs to give them tech, learning skills and everything. So I was there as like a cultural liaison for language purposes, as well as just to be a liaison, right? So the project can be done to completion. That was 2015. and 2017, during my master's, I was given a grant to go do research on forest conservation in Sumatra. And that was wonderful as well. Another way to go back to Indonesia, knowing the language, knowing the people, the culture, and now do research on things I'm passionate about, which is the environment. So, Indonesia holds a dear place in my heart, and I'm sure I'm going to keep going back because I have plenty of friends and family there.
Being able to travel to Indonesia and, as you mentioned, Sumatra and other areas of Southeast Asia, and now being based in New York, how do you see the disparities between access to technology?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think over there, they're in the right direction. I felt like my students, one time I had a computer that totally went dead upon the first 6 months I was there. And some of my students who probably weren't the strongest in English, they took my computer apart, they fine tuned it. And somehow I was able to keep teaching it for lessons when we had to use the projector. So I think that generation, at least that I was teaching then, is probably the highest percentage of students who go to college, right? So, they're not just getting these provincial learning systems, they're getting the national ones and even the international ones, because you have teachers that come to teach in Indonesia from all over the world. So I think they're definitely on the right track. I think it's not equal access across the entire country because it's so vast, right? There's thousands of islands, 17,000 islands there, 8,000 are inhabited, and different levels of school system funding. So therefore, that leads to various resources that they can have. But I think that there's a willingness and a desire and thirst to want to get those skills so that they can do better, right? And I think obviously coming here where America's doing its own thing where, I'm a millennial, right? So tech was sort of always in my peripheral front view since, I began school. At different levels, there were more resources than others, but, I always made sure to stay on top of it, even though I'm not a techie in the traditional sense. Just everyone sort of gathering their skills that they know to help each other. At least that's how me and my friends do. It's there's friends who are good with finance tech, right? And then there's some with tech for medicine and everything like that. We're all just sharing conversations over brunch to just help each other learn. It's different because of the culture, right? America's very individualist, but I think there's times when we all want each other to know things and understand, so we come together in affinity groups, right? So for women of color, for women, for millennials, I'm finding those, and it's been helping me to just stay involved and stay enthusiastic as well, because this is newer for me, but it's always been there. It's ubiquitous as well. So
being that you've worked with institutions relating to providing technology support throughout the world and an education aspect, what would you say would be the need or how to address education with technology right now during COVID-19, especially because teachers are preparing for the fall?
Absolutely. I would say it goes back to access. I think, sort of when you were speaking earlier about them getting the tools to find their own niche for different things, just seeing now where people are having virtual classes, are having virtual meetings. Before it seemed like internet and access to it was a luxury, but now it's a necessity. And so my teacher friends are saying that some of their students, even before, they never really had like a tablet or something to learn on at home, but now that they were fortunately given these tools, they picked it up really quickly and are able to like even help the teacher out for, lessons and to communicate effectively over virtual learning sessions. And where I was working with ICC, it seems they did a lot of delivering services. For instance, let's say there's retirees who are in one part of the world and they need to get their benefits, and they now have an app that they can do that, right? So if they have access to the app and know how to use it, therefore their life becomes easier. It's the same even with students. Once they have the access to it, I'm sure there'll be a sponge to absorb the information, the know-how, and then they can use it to their best ability, right? And for me, at least what I've noticed, business level, and then at the social, the society and community is just access is gold. And I think we don't say that enough, but I think if more people had access, we'd have a lot of great things going on.
Yeah, I really agree too. I really feel that, like I said, I've been trying for years to push ed tech, and that's the next wave. And I saw it years ago.
Right.
It was fintech and health, and ed tech is really where it's going. And it's funny because it was happening either way because of COVID-19. If you just think of terms of resources, in terms of just accessibility, technology allows you to do that, right? Delivering course content with paper and books is not really a sustainable way, but with technology, you can use Google Classroom or other means of like PDF and to share files, and it just makes it accessible for students who are rural, who don't necessarily live close to the school. You can provide access. Also, too, you can provide like cultural exchanges and having students in parts of the world. So it just really makes sense. So now with COVID-19, this is like the challenge. But I just feel that I see what's happened in the conversation, and like you said, it's not even about access. It's not even about the quality of education. It's just somehow that replaces teachers. It doesn't. We need to be forward thinking, and our students need to be fully prepared. And if you have little students in Indonesia taking part of computers, I'm not too sure how many students are doing that. Yes, we really have to push for accessibility and an expansion of ed tech, because once we provide the access, it really provides support to marginalized groups that now it's been equalized. Because otherwise, what I found in the school partnerships we had, why they had such low numbers of girls and people of color and girls of color in the programs, the information of how it was shared, it was not wide to the school. It was pre-selected. That's a key to moving forward in terms of accessible and equality education, ensuring that everyone has access to iPads or laptops at home, and everyone has access to do digital work, because at some point in their lives and in their career, they're going to require to do so. And those that have been doing for a longer period of time are proven to be more prepared for the future of work. And they're prepared to have jobs that are going to sustain throughout COVID-19. So I think it's very important that we advocate for accessible and equality technology, like ed tech technologies for children and throughout the world, because they're going to need it in their adult lives, and this is training for that.
No question. I couldn't agree more. I'm just seeing it now with friends who are teachers. They're saying the same thing. This isn't a luxury. Like you said, it's an equalizer, and you can start from somewhere, but I think tech sort of helps you get to that place where you want to be. I totally agree.
Innovation is the way forward.
Innovation, absolutely. I agree. Did you have any other question for me?
I guess the final question would be, so what type of things are you doing now in your current role?
So I actually finished my role at UNICC, and I'm looking to search for another where I'm sort of doing similar work. I enjoy writing. I like that I've had various instances in my life where people have challenged me in my writing and helped me become a better writer. Academia writing versus because like business writing are two different animals. But at the same time, like writing about like experiences in tech or innovations in tech for audiences who may not be familiar with this language, that's something I enjoy, and I think it's a good challenge for me as well. So if I did find something like that, that would be awesome. So that's sort of where my quest is now, is to sort of find a role that does that. Communications, like dealing with tech, that would be awesome. So like that's my plan, at least short term.
Well, I wish you all the best in that. And if you need any guidance or support, I'm definitely here to provide that.
I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you. After hearing you, I will certainly take you up on that. Thank you. So everyone, that wraps up our session today for Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. Thank you so much, Aminka, for joining us today. And thank you so much to our audience for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.